March means one thing. Basketball, basketball, basketball. Did you know that college players born in North Dakota are historically the most accurate three-point shooters? The NCAA is using Google Cloud to turn data into insights, and so can your business. See how at g.co/March Madness. Google Cloud, the official cloud of the NCAA.
This is the best
Do you hear me?
of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Let's head to Mississippi and welcome in Matt Luke. I'm tempted to always refer to him as the new coach, but he's no longer the new coach. Coach, good afternoon.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
I know you're the coach. You're not anything else other than that, and but you are going through your first spring as the head coach. Right. And tell us how it's gone.
No, it's going good. You know, I think we got a lot of guys coming back that have a lot of experience, and so that's been good. It's been good to see Jordan Ta'amu, interact with the receivers and the O-line. When he walks on the field, it's his team. That's been really fun to watch.
And, of course, the spring game this weekend, I know for fans, and we get it here all the time, what does this mean, who's starting, all the questions that probably don't concern coaches as much as trying to see improvement. But when you set out a game plan for the spring and you get to the scrimmage, what are you hoping to gain from that day?
Well, I think the biggest thing is in a lot of spots there's some guys that we're trying to get experience. We're trying to get some young guys better. We want, obviously, to get out of there with no injuries. That's what's going to be on my mind, is making sure we get some guys some snaps and get them out of there without getting injured. But I think getting the young players that provide depth to your team, I think that's where spring practice is really important.
And, Coach, I want to ask you about that. We showed a headline here earlier from a couple other schools in the SEC about serious injuries, ACLs, a lot of issues. And I know that a football player can pull something or tear something virtually doing anything. We all know that. But how do you keep that in mind as you head to spring? Because you certainly, of all play, if you lose a player in a game during the season, you just accept that to be part of the reality. But is there anything you can do to avoid it?
You know what? I don't think that you can avoid all the injuries. Unfortunately, in our game, that's a part of it. But I think you just try to be smart, because one of the things we wanted to try to do was try to run the ball and stop the run better. That requires tackling and being physical. But I just think you got to pick your spots. You can't do it every single day or every single period in practice. Maybe you pick a spot and you go get after it for a period and you kind of pull back. But in these scrimmages, which we've had 2 of them already, and we're going to have another one on Saturday, you do got to roll the ball out there and play. But you can put certain people on a pitch count, so to speak, and then try to get them their reps and get them out of there. In
terms of Saturday's game, you mentioned scrimmage, and that's really what it is. Fans are excited anytime they can go to an event in Oxford on a Saturday, whether it's in April or October. It's still great. But what is the game plan from start to finish?
So what we're going to do, we're going to play the offense versus the defense, and then we'll give the defense a certain amount of points, say 27 points, and then the offense is going to go try to catch them. And it'll be ones versus ones and twos versus twos, but that way it's easy to keep up with. There's a point system, and it's really easy to follow.
And you're gonna be asked these questions until you're not, but everything is somewhat of a first for you as the head coach. You've been on the staff for a long time, but what are you beginning to encounter and learn? Obviously decisions come through your desk. I would think that's where it starts, right?
Right. No, I just think, I think all coaches, we're all creatures of a routine. And I think that's the biggest thing for me, is getting that routine. As an offensive line coach for 14 years, I was doing the same thing, pretty much every day. So I think getting into that routine has been critical, learning how to deal with, the media, with, all the recruiting, that you're recruiting more than one position, you're recruiting every single position. I think just getting into the routine every day, that's what's going to help me the most.
After the injury last year, we saw Jordan Ta'amu, and everyone fell in love with him, as we tend to fall in love with that position. Give us a report on Jordan, and how has the spring gone?
Well, I think it's been great. Just like I said before, when he walks on the field, it's his team. So really been impressed with how he's managed everything. He's kind of picked up where he left off in the Egg Bowl, and he's had a phenomenal spring. Love his command of the offense, and his decision making has been really, really good, and just really excited about what he's going to do.
In terms of just looking ahead, and I know as a coach you have to get through spring, and then the May has it's other challenges, going visiting and speaking and all the things that come with the job. But do you find how do you look ahead to the season now? Because I know it seems like a long way off, but it really isn't.
No, I think the biggest thing for me is just taking it one day at a time and trying to get better. We in the spring you want to think about players, not plays, and we got to get some of these young linemen that we need to provide depth. Some of the backup receivers, some young defensive linemen, some of the linebacker group. The guys that really need the depth when you have an injury. I think that's where spring becomes really important and will help us come fall.
You were part of the staff a year ago when it was awkward because of the bowl situation. How do you approach 2018?
Well, I think the culture of our team is really, really good. So I really enjoyed the fact to see where our team came from at the beginning of the season to the end, where they were really focusing on each other and playing hard for one another, because they do sacrifice an awful lot day in, day out. And so I really like that about our team. Not so much focusing on playing for a bowl game or this or that, but really working and trying to work hard for each other. And I like that about where our team has come.
And, of course, for the record, the school is still appealing, so you really don't know for a fact. And I can understand that would be something you'll factor in later.
Yeah, no doubt. I think you always, you plan for the worst, and if that happens, it's a bonus. So we're going out and we're attacking, and we're trying to get better each and every day and playing for each other. And if something like that happens, it's a bonus.
I always have talked to coaches who have come up through the ranks like you have, and they often tell me after the first season that the one thing that they were completely unaware of was the demands on your time. And I'm sure you're already getting a sense of that. How do you manage your schedule now that you have much more to be concerned about other than your recruiting area and coaching the line?
Well, I just think that I enjoy that part of it. This is something that I've dreamed about my whole life, and so I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed getting the chance to get out and talk to people and spread our message, and get a chance to build relationships with everybody on the team, and just excited about the opportunity. And that may change later, but right now it's been a lot of fun.
Well, when you meet people, and obviously, you knew a lot of people anyway. It wasn't like you were walking down to the square going unnoticed, but I sense you're probably getting noticed a little more now.
Yeah, that part is a little bit different, but I really enjoy getting to meet people, and I grew up as an Ole Miss fan, and I've been a player, and I've been a coach, so I've kind of been around Ole Miss all my life. So it's fun to kind of give back, and because I've been one of those people before. I've been a fan, and I really enjoy giving back and meeting those people. So
you've gone up to other head coaches harassing them for time in the past?
Absolutely.
I'd like to hear some of those stories one day. I am curious, though, because you come from that background, and your family is so embedded in Ole Miss history that when you are not sure about something, where do you go for counsel?
I think you pull from past experiences. I think that's number one. I call Coach Cutcliffe pretty regularly. When I got the job, I called several people, but I would say if I'm calling anybody for counsel, I'm usually calling Coach Cutcliffe. I have my brother on staff here, that's helpful. When we go, we'll go on an hour walk and we'll talk. It's good to have, a guy on your family that's on the staff and you can kind of bounce things off of. That's been helpful as well.
Saturday is around the corner. The spring game, of course, it will be on national television. Coach, always a pleasure. Thanks for making time, and we will see you very soon, I hope.
Thanks, Paul. Hotty toddy.
You got it. Hotty toddy from Ole Miss.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Let's grab Matt next up. What do you say, Matt?
Oh, I'm pissed after Friday, Paul, after you hung up the phone on me.
I hung up on you, Matt?
Yeah, you did, and I got to ask you a question. I heard the show yesterday. Why do you defend Nick Saban so much? Didn't he let you have it at media days last year about Cam Robinson?
It was actually the year before. I mean, I challenged him on.
He basically sat there and told you all. I've never seen a biased show where you sit there And
you know something, Matt. Let me explain something before you give me a lecture. I asked him a legitimate question based in my journalistic past.
And he jumped all over you, Paul.
And he did. I thought he made a fool out of himself myself, but that's okay. We talked afterwards.
No, but you thought he made a fool out of
the difference
himself,
between Matt, the difference between you and me is that I'm a professional, and I realized that day was over. I had my say, he had his. And we talked after he called me. Hold on a second. Hold on.
The difference between a professional
Matt,
kissing his butt every day,
Matt, you need to learn to listen for just a second, okay? And he apologized, and we saw each other a couple of days later.
Where did he apologize? Did he apologize on air? Or did he called me.
He called me after the show.
Well, how sweet.
Well, no,
I mean,
but the point is,
he embarrassed you in public.
He didn't embarrass me. I asked him a question, and he did whatever he chose to do.
Yeah.
Now the difference between Nick Saban and you is that Nick Saban may have embarrassed himself one time. You embarrass yourself every time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. And you talk about how you know why 99% of your show is like Alabama fans.
I have no idea.
Because I think the unemployment rate's the highest in Alabama than any other state. I mean, let's be honest, Paul. But I tell you what, I am officially striking the Finebaum show because I did for your ratings what Trump did for Roseanne. I actually gave another opinion saying I embarrassed. No, I didn't sit there and call and say, "Hey, I'm the legend in the double wide trailer park from Alabama. Roll Tide, Roll Tide." You know, or and I've got two teeth, but Roll Tide. Or I'm some Tennessee fan. I've got one tooth, and I met this Florida girl, and go Gators. I mean, yeah, no, I actually the most intelligent fan base.
By the way, Alabama's unemployment rate is below Georgia right now.
No, it's not. I just looked it up, Paul.
No, well, I just
you're looking at that Wikipedia again, Paul.
No, I'm actually looking at U.S. government statistics, so try again.
Well, let me ask you a question. If Alabama's such a great state, why did ESPN move you to Charlotte instead of keep you in the great state of Greenbow, Alabama?
Alabama's unemployment rate 4.2. Georgia's is 4.6. You want to try me again? 4.7, well, I'm sorry.
Answer my question. Why did if Alabama was such a great state, why didn't ESPN?
First of all, I've never said anything about Alabama other than I lived there a long time and I happen to like it.
You love it. It's the most
I would. I mean, listen. I'd move back there tomorrow if I could.
I know you would. I mean, you love it. Alabama. I mean, that's the sad thing about it. You're their biggest ambassador, and Saban made a fool of you on media days. And you're going to sit there and say, well, Matt, you make a fool of every time you call just because I'm a Georgia fan, you know. And here's the funny thing about it is, let's boil down the facts. Georgia lost by 2 points last year. We're not talking 4 touchdowns. It took the great Crimson Tide overtime to beat us in Kirby's second year. So let's face the facts. And you talk about, let me ask you a question, Paul. How many years as a head coach did it take Nick to win a national championship? 9 years. All right, we're on Kirby's, and that we're talking about Kirby's third year. I remember 2007. I went down there with all those rednecks, and we beat Saban in his first year. We caught the wide receiver, and we called it in the touchdown. All them Tuscaloosa's don't remember that. They don't remember that, Paul. But I'm about sick of you picking on Georgia and our fans, picking on Darryl. You know, if you had a coach's ranking, it'd be Nick Saban 1 through 10 because you can't think of anybody else other than Alabama. You there, Paul?
You still there, Matt?
Yeah, I'm still here. You got a rebuttal?
No, Matt, I'm not. I've chosen not to really engage you any longer because you don't know how to talk to people.
No,
you know what you are, Matt. Matt, all you are.
Hey, Paul, I'll tell you what. I'm going to go on strike from Paul Finebaum.
You know, Matt, I got to tell you.
Before we apologize,
Matt, let me ask you.
I'm going to act like fair and play dead. Have a good day. Go Dogs.
You know, Matt, I feel sorry for you. that your only ability to find any self-worth is to attack a state and to attack a fan base. That's really not how we play the game here. We try to have conversations. We try to engage each other. We don't just blabber. I mean, even Daryl understands how this show is operated, and Daryl understands that if he doesn't call in, that we will all do quite well without him. I don't think you've quite gotten that memo, but quite frankly, if you never call again, somehow, some way, this show will survive. Kelly is up next in Mississippi. How are you, Kelly?
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Paul, I'm from Birmingham originally, and I had to move to the state of Mississippi a long time ago, and my blood's still crimson, you know?
I understand quite well.
I'm going to ask you a question, just one question, and maybe you can help me, maybe you can't. How many total national titles between, basketball and football, between men's basketball and football, has Michigan won?
Michigan has won they won a basketball a couple years. Yeah, they won a basketball, and they won 1.5 is the answer in the last 50 years.
All right, who won the half?
The football team. They shared a championship in, what year was that, Mark? 91 or something. University of Michigan.
What, their half championship?
Yeah,
97.
97, I'm sorry. That was Charles Woodson's year. Now, they did win one in basketball, didn't they? I think it was vacated, though, wasn't it?
89. No, that one still stands. That's the one banner still hanging.
Okay, I couldn't remember. So Michigan in the last 50 years has 1.5 national championship in the two major sports.
Well, they sure get awful cocky, don't they?
I mean, they may have one in lacrosse or hockey or wrestling or
that last caller that just called you a minute ago, I guess he's a Bulldog fan. They don't understand, because nobody lives like we do. Nobody, and they hate us. Why? Because you're not cocky if you can back it up, right, Paul?
That's what I've always heard. Yeah.
Kid Rock said that. Paul Finebaum, have a great day, buddy.
You bet. Great to hear from you. Appreciate it.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a quill.
Mark in Richmond, Virginia. Hello, Mark.
Hey, Paul. I'm an over-the-road truck driver. I'm on my way to Richmond, but I'm a big Georgia Bulldog fan. How you doing?
Wonderful. Great. Glad to hear from you.
Well, what got me to call you for the first time is that Mac guy. Good night. I mean, how can you be so obnoxious about the team you like and he was really disrespectful to you?
Well, that's okay. Listen, I don't mind what people say to me. I'm supposed to be a punching bag here, but it's just what I object to is the fact that you cannot talk to him. I mean, he just knows everything and doesn't stop. I mean, everyone has a right to talk, but at some point, man.
But he kind of sounded. I don't even know if he's worthy to be a doormat at the University of Georgia. Good night, but anyway, I love Georgia, and I think they got a great team, and but I don't think we're quite there yet. But you got to beat the big guy. That's Alabama.
Well, I want to say something to you, Mark, before you go. Being an over the road truck driver, when this program went to Sirius XM back in 2010, you guys were the heart and soul of our expansion, and I really appreciate the truckers out there for helping make this show what it is on a national basis.
Oh, no problem. I enjoy it. Really enjoy it.
Great to hear from you. Thanks so much. Iman is up next. He is an indoor
air comfort engineer, Paul.
An indoor air comfort engineer. Thank you, Iman.
That means I know more about it than you do, and that's why you would call me.
And I did try to call you once, and you wouldn't call me back.
Well, that's because you said, "Do you know who I am? I'm Paul Finebaum." You must not know who I am, and I know who you are.
That's usually how I start conversations.
And you know what? I knew when I got through you wasn't going to pay me, because I still have yet to get that Zippo lighter. I mean, what's a Zippo lighter? $3 Take a nail scratch.
I just sent you one. Do you get it? Do you get Amazon Prime?
If you send it on Amazon Prime, then I would assume that it would be primely delivered to my door.
Yeah, I just ordered you a Zippo.
Okay, all right. You know, since we're going back way back in the Wayback Machine, you know what? In 1492, Columbus set out with 3 ships.
I ordered you
3 ships, and they thought he was going to go off the edge of the world. In 406 years, Auburn beat the living hell out of University of Alabama in Birmingham. In 406 years. It took that long to sail off the edge of the world that was round, not flat, and to end up in Birmingham. And now the Georgia fans are scared of success. They're crying amongst themselves. I think Georgia fans fear success more than anything. They're grabbing so hard, and they think because they got Kirby and he knows how Alabama cheats so well that he's going to bring that to them. But they are scared of success, and they're also scared of losing, because now they're in that middle zone, and they see Florida and Tennessee fixing to come on like gangbusters, like Al Capone and Lucky Luciano and all them cats.
Don't you make fun of Al Capone?
What's that?
All Al Capone did was forget to pay his taxes.
That's all, but what did it cost him? Well, I mean, my goodness, sakes alive. I mean, Alcatraz and some of these other godforsaken
let me tell you
places.
something. I've been to Alcatraz. The view is incredible.
And you know what? It certainly doesn't look like a place you'd want to stay too long.
No, that was the only thing about it. I mean, I
years.
really enjoyed going, but it was more fun to leave.
Absolutely.
And I didn't have to swim to shore.
One of them cats thought that left there too. But you know, right now I do believe that Georgia is scared of success, because with that they've got to maintain if they want to be a big boy in the conversation, and it's not easy in the SEC. And you know, we could go 20 years ago. The SEC had the greatest coaches of. It's amazing the coaches that have gone through this league. Some of them not so good, but the others were just prime. And it never goes without saying the SEC has an amazing group of coaches, as they do this year. But Georgia is they're scared of success, Paul. You can hear it. They're scared. They're trembling, and they got to call you up and blame you because you're not on the Georgia bandwagon. But Georgia hasn't done enough really to show anybody, have they?
This would normally be where I interrupt the
consistent.
caller, but people are cheering and asking me to, so we'll be right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
March means one thing: basketball, basketball, basketball. Did you know that college players born in North Dakota are historically the most accurate three-point shooters? The NCAA is using Google Cloud to turn data into insights, and so can your business. See how at g.co/March Madness. Google Cloud, the official cloud of the NCAA.
Rich in the ATL. What's up, Rich?
What's up, Jack? How you doing, bro?
We're doing great. Thank you.
Jack, what's the chances Matt from Gainesville shows up at SEC Media Days?
I think they're pretty good.
I do, too. You know, that's right down to 85. Hey, forget him. He's a moron. Hey, have you been paying attention to what's going on at Augusta with Tiger Woods last couple of days?
Yeah, sure.
Isn't it crazy? I mean, seriously, Couples was talking about him last night. I saw him on the Golf Channel, and then, you know, he played with Nicholson today, right? In the practice round.
He played with Phil, and Fred played with him as well. Fred's kind of the official host of the Masters now.
Isn't it cool, though, that he played with Mickelson? Could you imagine him playing a practice round with Phil 20 years ago?
No. I think... maybe being away from a Tiger maybe is now seeing his position with Phil as Arnie and Jack of 30 or 40 years ago.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. And here's my question for you. If he had to do it over again, if you were him, minus all the personal stuff, because that's really nobody's business in my opinion, what do you think he would have did differently?
You know, there's a catch at the end of that question, and I think Tiger has great regret of all the people that he has hurt. But from an analyst standpoint, Rich, I think to accomplish what he did, he probably would have had to gone down the same path.
Seriously, see, that's why I disagree.
That's okay.
I think if he had to do it over again, I think the arrogance I think he would have dropped the arrogance because.
Let me ask you this: if you had, would Tiger give up those 14? Here's where it gets hard. It's always like you sit around, you look down. What would you do to change your life?
Right.
I think he had to be that way to win the 14 majors. I don't think he had to be that way to be as rude and arrogant to everyone that came in front of him, including his wife and friends. But this, Rich, and I'm not making excuses for anyone, but those people, those rare people like that, do you know many really good guys in that club?
Absolutely not. Other than you, Jack.
Well, I'm not in that club, but I would tell you, and I'll use Nick Saban as an example. I think Nick Saban at 66 is a much nicer person than he was at 56 because he realizes that he has missed a lot in his life, and I think that's why he has stayed at Alabama, and I think that's why he is spending as much time now with his kids and his grandkids, and I'll leave it at that.
No, I totally understand what you're saying. But I'm talking, but what I was getting at, that marketing machine that he became, Ben, he's accountable ultimately for his behavior.
Oh, sure.
However, do you think, exactly, do you think Nike and IMG, and do you really think that they helped him in hindsight?
No, they didn't.
They helped him become a billionaire,
no,
because, but again.
They all cared about the same thing, Rich, and they all got what they...
Money.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to claim I know Tiger Woods. I've been around him a couple of times in fairly intimate settings. I've watched him and others, and I just think he didn't see anything peripherally or in front of him other than the golf course. And
no, I understand.
Yeah,
but don't you think
I know people like that? No one like him, of course. Now, I don't know Michael Jordan, but I've watched Michael Jordan up close, and in his prime, he wasn't a whole lot different.
Right. But don't you think that another thing tangibly would have been his playing schedule? He's only a couple behind, I think, Byron Nelson. I'm not sure who's the all-time leader on the PGA Tour. He's only a couple behind him. And he only played X amount of events during the year, and I think that's another regret he would have. Was maybe he should have played more often. You think that's fair enough?
I think that's fair, but listen, I watched a lot of Nicklaus in his prime, not his prime, but his later prime, and he didn't play many tournaments either.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Now, early on he did because there weren't that many tournaments, but I'm talking about as Nicklaus got into his 30s and 40s, he was pretty particular. Again, the other thing about Nicklaus, Nicklaus starting 35, 40 years ago, started designing golf courses all over the world. So that took him out of the, once he hit 40, that's really what he was doing.
Right. No, I get it. And Jack never had any of the arrogance Woodsy had, though.
Well, but
that was the other thing.
But let me say this about Jack, and of the people we've talked about, I've been around him the most. He is not the most. He was not the most engaging guy. He still isn't. He's an old guy now. But Palmer had the charm. Jack really never had that much charm. He was just a great player.
Yeah, and he was the greatest ever. All right, Jack. Well, thanks. I'm looking forward to it. Who do you like this weekend? Early prediction.
I'm going JT all the way.
Justin Thomas. I like Dustin. I think Dustin's going to win, but JT's.
Dustin played with. He played with Trump the other day. I hope Trump didn't screw up his game.
I didn't realize that. I thought he was playing with Jim from Tuscaloosa.
Well, no, that was a threesome. It was they played at Trump International. It was Jim, and Jim won, by the way.
Yeah, I'm sure he did.
Giving Trump, Jim gave Trump 6 aside, and he gave Dustin 1 aside.
I'm sure he did. All right, bro. Talk to you soon. Thanks.
That's pretty funny.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
It's been a while since we have spoken to Jason Kersey. He covers the Arkansas Razorbacks, and what a good opportunity to find out what's happening with a new coach. Jason, it's been a long time. I hope all is well with you, and set the scene for us. How's everything going with Chad Morris?
Yeah, well, Paul, first of all, thanks for having me on. It's nice to talk to you again. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of excitement around here about Chad Morris. You know, the fan base had really sort of turned on Brett Bielema there at the end, and for obvious reasons. Things weren't going well. They were a bad football team last year. And Chad Morris has definitely provided some excitement. I think that his offense, his style of offense, is what these fans have really wanted to see for quite some time. And I think they got a little taste of it with Bobby Petrino, and we all know how that ended. So I think now Chad Morris promises to bring an exciting offense back to Fayetteville, and then you know, on the defensive side, I think you know, John Chavis, for you know, whatever you want to say about the few years he had at Texas A&M, this is a top-notch defensive coordinator, and I think you know, I think there's a chance that there's reason to be excited. Maybe not this year, because I think Brett Bielema's staff left the talent level a little bit low, but you know, down the road, I definitely think there's some signs of hope for Arkansas here.
Yeah, let me talk about Chavis for a minute, because you know, when he was at Tennessee, we all know the respect he had. That move to LSU, when he went to A&M, the expectations were high, and then we kind of forgot about him because the defenses were not that great, even though he had the best player in the country 2 years ago. Why should, and this obviously it's an interpretive question, why should Arkansas fans believe this trip will be different for John Chavis?
Yeah, and that's a very fair question. I think in the case of when he was at Texas A&M, I think you know, I think there were a lot of factors there. But one thing that is important to remember is that the numbers did get better for him at Texas A&M than they were previously. I mean, he did make some improvements. He had NFL guys who made it into the NFL. So I mean, I think obviously it wasn't what anyone expected, and that's fair. But I think he did make improvement. I think he still knows how to coach people, and I think once he gets his system in here, I think there's definitely reason to believe. Now, the biggest problem John Chavis is going to face this year, and maybe for the next couple of years, is the just incredible lack of talent. I mean, you know, Brett Bielema's staff did not recruit well, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They have maybe 2 or 3 people, I think, that are definite SEC football players: Ryan Pulley, McTelvin Agim, and then probably linebacker Dijon Harris. And outside of that, they're not working with much. So this year, I think Arkansas fans are going to need to be patient with Chavis, because this is not a talented football team right now.
Let me back up for just a second, Jason, because you know, so many of us in the media, you know, kept saying, "Well, Brett Bielema is a really good coach." How did it get so bad under Bielema?
Yeah, it's incredible how quickly it turned. I mean, he had improved that team from 3-9 to 7-6 to 8-5, and it felt like things were definitely moving in the right direction. They won 2 bowl games, and then I think the end of the 2016 season, when they blew huge second half leads to Missouri and Virginia Tech, that's when things started to turn. But that's not the only reason that things went bad last season. I think the lack of talent, I keep coming back to that, but I think the lack of talent really hurt. And one thing Brett Bielema did, and I don't know why this happened, but they just did not recruit Texas. I mean, I think in his 5 classes he signed 15 people from Texas. Well, that's a border state that is just overflowing with Division I talent, and it's just mind-boggling that he didn't recruit Texas better. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I think one big one, there were the reports that he, the fight that he got in with Cliff Kingsbury over, how he wanted to play offense. I think that bothered a lot of coaches in Texas, but Texas is a border state. Arkansas can only be good if they recruit Texas well. If they recruit Texas, the same way that Oklahoma State and Oklahoma do, and they just didn't do that. Now, the good thing for Chad Morris is he was a Texas high school coach. 2 or 3 of his other staff members were Texas high school coaches. It may take some time, but I think they're going to get back into Texas, and if they can do that, then they can turn things around. It just may take a little time.
We know what Chad Morris has done as an assistant and obviously as a head coach, but if you had to take not a wild guess because you probably have a pretty good idea, but what is this offense going to look like?
Well, I mean, I think they're going to play fast, obviously. And that's going to be a big change from what we saw under Brett Bielema. They just did not play fast. They huddled up. That's just something that Chad Morris does not do. And right now, the big question for me is the offensive line. That got really bad the last 2 years under Brett Bielema. It'll be interesting to see what they're able to do there. But, they have some talent on offense. Cole Kelly is probably going to be the quarterback. I think he's a talented guy. I think he's definitely capable of playing in this kind of system. And then at running back, Devwall Whaley and T.J. Hammonds and Chase Hayton are all 3 really talented running backs. And running backs can and they're running backs that can catch the ball. They're running backs that can do a lot of different things. So I think that really a lot of it's going to depend on what the offensive line does and who steps up at receiver. But Arkansas fans are not going to recognize this offense because it's going to look nothing like what it looked like last year.
Jason, looking at the personnel and looking at the schedule, these are always questions people love in early April.
Right.
What's the range for the Razorbacks?
Oh, gosh. It'd be great if they could get bowl eligible. I think that might be a little bit tough, although I think the non-conference slate is a little bit maybe easier than it was last year. They don't have a TCU on the schedule, but they do have to, they're not going to beat Alabama. They're not going to beat Auburn. This is a team that needs to try to get to 6 wins. If they can get to 6 wins, I think it's a successful season. But I'm just not sure that they're quite there based on how bad they were last year. I mean, people forget last year they are 2 comeback wins against Ole Miss and Coastal Carolina, which they won by 1 point from going 2-10 last season. So this is a team that has a lot of rebuilding to do.
Bowl eligible, that's not exactly what Razorback fans thought they would be talking about looking back maybe 4 years ago in 2018. By now, I think, Jason, and you would agree, they were at least hoping to be in the conversation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they went from having, Bobby Petrino's last 2 years, they won 10 games. They went to the Sugar Bowl 1 year. They won the Cotton Bowl, Bobby Petrino's last year. They finished ranked 5th in the country, only losses to LSU and Alabama. There was a reason to believe that Arkansas was a program that might be right there on the cusp of being a national power, and things just fell apart after that, and they haven't figured out how to put it back together.
Good to catch up. Jason Kersey joining us. He's with The Athletic. It's a great new publication, and we hope to talk to you very soon, Jason. Be well.
All right, Paul. Thank you.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Let's go to Ian in Orlando. Ian, go right ahead.
Hello, Paul.
Hello, Ian.
Cheers. Good evening.
Cheers.
Good afternoon. I'm hoping you can give me a bit of advice here. I'm on holiday down here for the first time. Apparently, you can tell by my accent. I'm a little nervous here. My daughter and I are here. She prolonged her holiday, college tour, spring break. Her name is Amber, and her boyfriend Zaslow are so slim from what I fear is a drug that they must be on. The street name is called 790. Our good Dr. Romberg said it is a basic.
Hold on a second. Ian, allow me to interrupt.
Of course, absolutely.
Where in England are you from?
Worcestershire.
Worcestershire. I put that on my steak
Worcestershire, UK. The kids call it the Hobbit, but the street name is also 790. They call it the Tobin too. I'm hoping that you could actually help me and my daughter Amber kick the Hobbit.
No, that's Amber, not Amber.
Amber. Her name is Amber.
Like
Amber Wilson, my daughter. My last name is Wilson too. obviously.
And you're in Orlando. Why?
Celebrating spring break with her. She prolonged, I said, her extension. So I'm here trying to make sure.
Is it spring in
She listens
Worcester?
to you all the time. I'm sorry?
Is it? Did you have spring break over in Worcester?
Worcestershire.
I told you, I prefer A1.
Not to be mistaken with the sauce. So it's the same thing there.
Okay, hold on. Let's stop. Because my grandfather's from London, so I should get this right.
Of course.
It's not Worcester. It's Worcestershire.
It's Worcestershire.
Worcestershire.
We're from Worcestershire, UK, England.
UK.
My daughter Amber, her boyfriend Zaslow.
What? If your daughter out there comes home,
carry on,
and her name is Amber, and she says, "Dad, I want you to meet Zaslow."
I thought he was Russian to begin with, but no, he's a cherry,
You think
mate.
you're like in a Dickens book or something, don't you?
Sometimes I feel like I am in
I don't know about you,
novel.
but they were the best of times and the worst of times.
No, we the best of times and the best of times. You got to think positive, you know. My fingers are getting blisters.
I'm a student of English Lit. I can't think positive.
Cheers. We love you, you know. Thanks for the advice, though.
Please give Amber my best, and thank goodness. And she was right to.
And that drug 790.
790, absolutely. Everyone knows 790.
Yes, of course. Absolutely.
Shalom. You guys were so kind to Israel. I thought I'd throw that out.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
Glad you're with us. Squirrel, it's been a while since we've talked to the Squirrel.
It's been a couple of days. Man, you had an outstanding show today. You are taking no prisoners today, and you started at the very beginning with that way. I mean, you dismissed Jimbo Fisher's hunting buddy, and you diced.
You have to admit, I mean, you are a little tired of hearing about the hunting lodge, aren't you?
Let me tell you something. I'm a hunter, and I've been around some of those type places. People that do that cat was lying from the very beginning, Paul. You knew that. I mean, people of that nature who do things of that nature don't go on radio and sound like a drunken sailor and brag about it.
Yeah, he said that he and Jimbo were best buddies, and he was moving. He was following Jimbo. Jimbo's been there for about 4 months.
Well, let me tell you something. Jimbo is a football coach, and unfortunately, deer season and football season kind of coincide.
They do.
And I don't think Jimbo's going to be doing a whole lot of deer hunting. But if he did want a deer hunt, I'm sure as the coach at Texas A&M, he's probably got access to some of the most prime hunting properties.
And Squirrel, I'm not an expert on hunting, but I do know Texas is pretty rich in hunting.
Oh, Texas has got a great hunting culture, and thank God for Texas. I guess is all you can say on that. But no, I mean, you're serious. You usually give callers a few seconds to come to the air when you go to them. But today, if they don't answer the bell, boom, next caller. And I like that. And I'll get on straight to business, too. Friday, your lapdog called in. He was a little bit upset with you. Well, first of all, let me ask you another question. How many tweets do you get per day?
I don't know the number, but I would say it's quite high.
Yeah, 1,000 or more?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't expect you to answer them, but I sent you a tweet Friday. After I hung up, you said, once again, another Jim call from Squirrel. And I sent you a tweet, and I just simply asked you the question, Paul, every one of Jim's calls are about Jim. Why can't one of my calls be about Jim? So, I mean, that was a valid
Squirrel, I'm sorry I didn't answer your tweet, but as soon as we disagreed, I blocked you on Twitter, so that's why I didn't see it.
Oh, that's okay. I've been blocked before, and I'll be blocked again. But, occasionally I do try to have a sports take. I mean, I tried to call in a week or two ago and talk to you about Randy Sanders up there at my old alma mater. And now he's done gotten the news up there at East Tennessee State. But no, seriously, Jim, after he left your show, he went on the Legends show. And
really?
Picked up the argument from there. Oh, yeah. Somebody alerted me to it over the weekend, and I went to the podcast.
Didn't realize Jim was on Legends show.
Legend only has 30 minutes in his infomercial, and they spent 15 minutes talking about me and I-Man, so I don't understand that. But what troubles me.
Well, by the way, did you guys pick the 7th race or what?
Well, once again, I'm not interested in the drink specials at the Birmingham Dog Track. I mean, the people in that area is great. I mean, I'm all for it. Go there. I'm sure that bar is lively.
I won the Daily Double today, by the way.
Well, good. I'm more of a I'm a boxing type guy. I'll pick some dogs and box them all the way around, and hopefully one of them may hit. But he called in. He advocated violence against me, Paul.
Score. There's no way Jim advocated violence against a fellow man.
For one reason, he didn't want to be violent himself. He suggested that Legend get me in an empty room, and I don't know about that.
So he's encouraging Legend to do violence against you
in an empty room. That's what he said.
Well,
Legend, I don't know. I know he's had some brushes with the law.
Minor.
Still on probation, but the last thing Legend needs to do is get another altercation.
Well, no, I think Legend. First of all, I think Legend has paid his debt to society.
Well, of course he has. Yeah, I mean he's walking around, so there's not a wanted poster out after him. So yeah, he paid.
No. I mean, listen. I mean, I think if you go to jail and you come out and are rehabilitated, and the first sign of being rehabilitated, in my mind, is that you become a Finebaum caller.
Oh yeah. Well, again, I'm still waiting for my first night in jail. But it could be down the road. Have you ever been to jail, Paul?
No.
You never spent the night there?
No, I've never spent the night in jail. I've been to many jails, seeing a lot of my friends, but
I bet you have. Ironically, a lot of your friends are jailbirds.
I've been to some serious jails in my time.
I bet you have. Well,
but look, I have never been. But I've never spent the night there.
The next time your lapdog calls in, tell him to handle his own business and don't be trying to peddle his business off on Legend. Aloha.
Okay, man. That sounds like a threat. That did. We have an hour to go to settle all debts.
Thank you for listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast. The Paul Finebaum Show airs weekdays on the SEC Network, beginning at 3 Eastern.